Alrighty y'all, today we are going to start greasing everything that can be greased and or oiled on this old 504. Starting with the air filter here. And I highly advise, if you get any old tractor, not just international, get the operator's manual. This is a reprint I got off of Peaceful Creek's website. I got their whole kit. But anyways, so this shows every single greasable spot on this tractor, whether it takes oil or chassis grease, etc., etc. And this is really helpful. It has everything and anything you ever need to know. Shows you where it is. It tells you exactly what it is, and etc., etc. And actually, I read through these books on my free time because it really helps me learn which is which on these old tractors. I do it on my cars, etc. Like, I was wondering the other day what this port was, and apparently this is the cover for the hydraulic fluid filter. So I won't be servicing that today, but that is something I will do in the future. Same goes for the motor oil and gearbox. I know those need to be serviced. The hydraulic fluid in this is actually nice and milky, so I know there's water in there, and I need to get all that moisture out of this tractor before winter. Otherwise it could freeze, crack, and destroy stuff. And even though these things are strong, nothing stronger than water and ice. Now I'm just going to go down the list here. So number one, air cleaner. I actually worked on this a little bit yesterday, and I had to stop because I had to get going to work. But it was super milky and it definitely needed attention. And this tractor was in a front end collision actually. Don't know how, but there's so many hints that it has been, that this little band here is actually pressed up against this radiator mount, I'd say. So you can't actually take the band completely off and on. I was able to pry the bottom part of the bowl out, but I can't get it back in, so I have to figure that out. Well, if I can't save this hood, I'll have a good target for shooting practice. Now here she is with her hood off, and you guys can see what I was talking about, how that's just binding up on there. And this tube is supposed to be clean, and I assure you that is filthy. So I'm really glad we're taking this hood off and doing her justice and serving her right, because she's got she's had a rough life. More hints to her industrial nature. And here she is on the workbench, and I was thinking maybe you could pull this out, but I don't think you can. But yeah, clean, 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 and then all of a sudden just dirt. So that's pretty gross, but I'm going to clean that out, try and doll this up a little bit, and then throw her back on the tractor. Putting in the new filter. Well, after fighting this way longer than I should have, the sun was about there when I started. Now it's over there. It clears. It clears. Just barely. Oh, thank God that's over. And she also got greasy, so I'm gonna wash her off and then get to grease and everything else. Next up, oil. Check the oil level, blah blah blah. We're not going to worry about that right now. Steering knuckle post. So number 3 right there on the front. And I have a different wide front, so Zerks might vary, but there's one right there. And another nice thing about these service manuals is it tells you how many pumps to do. So 2 pumps, engaged. Number 4, upper and lower hydraulic cylinder support, rear. So it looks like that's in the steering knuckle area. Again, I don't have this front axle, but it's pretty easy to figure out. So right on down here at the drop pitman arm, I'm gonna grease up these guys right here. Oh, and this guy right here. greased up. Alright, we just covered 4, 5, and 6. Now let's go 7 through 10 here. And that is the 3-point hitch area. I took off some of my links, so I only have a couple things to grease, but I'll go back there and grease things up. Well, I could grease these guys, but that'd be kind of trivial. But we will get the torsion bar bushings right here. Yeah, she really needed that. It took a few pumps before I even had any grease coming out, so real glad I did that. Hydraulic fluid filter right there, number 10A. That's behind that plate right there, but I do not have a filter, so just gonna let that be for now. Number 11, clutch pedal and brake pedal. So these guys right here, so this goes over and lubricates both of these. I actually already did this the other day, so I don't need to worry about that. Here's a fun one. Lubricate the clutch pedal and brake pedal connections with a few drops of oil. Not sure what they mean by that, but I'm sure we can infer. They're probably talking about these links here and where they actually connect. There's like a little ball that this sits and rides in. This is like a ball, and this is like a cup. And that's just metal on metal, so I assume that's what it means by just dropping a little bit of oil in there, so wherever there's any movement with no zerks. Got my little oiling can here, my little Tin Man oiling can, and I'll just do my best to try and get a little bit of oil inside of there. It says every 500 hours or whatever, so it's not super important, but over the years could wear up. Just getting the pin there. I really should have cleaned this off first, but oh well. On the other side here, I know this step is later on, but I'll do it now because I'm right here. Throttle linkage. Gonna oil up that little ball right there. Romper a few times. Well, I can tell this is custom, but I'm gonna oil it anyways because there's movement there. So that means that needs oil. Too much. And right here at the governor, little arm right there. Oh, and how could I almost forget? Tie rods. Even though that probably won't do me much good. Hey y'all, it's the next day. So I did do the tie rods. I actually don't have a zerk on this end, and I don't have any to thread in, so it's already so wallered out. I just took the Tin Man oil can and just sprayed a little bit in there. But the other side did get a little grease, but like I said, there's not really much point to it because she's pretty wallered out. A lot of easy free play, and it goes up and down, but for now it's fine. So just putting it on there to prevent any more wear. Next up, clutch release shaft. And that's number 14 here. Looks like we get to remove that service cover. Laying underneath the tractor here, here's the clutch service cover. Both these bolts are 9/16. And be careful, because there's a seal underneath there, and it will collect oil right in that area there. So here we are underneath the tractor. Here's the grease zerk for the clutch release shaft right here. This requires just a couple pumps. Here on the left side of the tractor, next up we just got to grease the clutch release shaft right here. And right here on the right side of the tractor, right here. Back to the left side, next up the TA linkage right here. Next up, generator oil cups. Okay, so me being the person I am, I ripped out the whole thing to demonstrate this and also learn. So your generator, it's going to have an oil cup on the back here. You just give a nice little spritz of pick your poison. Some people use air tool oil. I just use a little bit of gear oil, 1540, just a heavier lubricant. But some people just, any oil is fine. Something's better than nothing for these. But you don't want to use too much or it can cause them to gum up, or it can get really junked up inside of these and then it can keep in heat and then these will burn out. This is a remanufactured generator. I read it on the tag down here, so I do have a generator, which is kind of cool. I never had something with a generator. And notice I have some back and forth play. There's a little shim washer in there. I can't remember what it's called, like a thrust washer. And that might be shot. But I'm actually going to pop this open because there should be another grease or oil drip on the front of this, and I can't find it. I saw this plug here, and something's telling me that they plugged this and put in a sealed bearing. on the front, but they left an oilable one on the back. Kind of weird, so just going to take it apart and take a look inside and see what it looks like. Alright, got the generator taken apart. The brushes seem fine. They got a little spring loadedness to them. And so far where they ride, it seems fine. This right here is actually what gets oiled by the oil drip cup here. You can see the oil I spritzed in there. So this is a bushing style. So the bushing style in the manual, to give it 2 to 3 squirts of oil. So it says, and I'm just going to read this out, filling the oil cup full approximately 2 or 3 times on a regular production generator, which is what we have, or I have, having a bushing type bearing, that is a bushing type bearing, at the commutator end, or fill the oil cup fully only once on a heavy duty generator having a ball bearing end. Well, we all know what a ball bearing end is, and this obviously isn't a ball bearing. This is just a bushing style. And obviously if it was a ball bearing, if I stuck my finger in here it would spin, but that is just like a brass sleeve that sits in there, and you can actually pop it out with these 2 little guys. So a couple spritzes of that oil and this will just last. Well, I'm glad I took that apart because I did find out this is a sealed bearing, folks. Yep, seems legit. So anyways, that plug was done intentionally. So on these here, if your generator is original, this is going to be the cap on the pulley end, and then here is where the oil cup would be, where you fill it up, and then it has a channel that goes through right here and then lubricates the bearing. So if I would have lubricated that, I would have just been dumping oil all around in here and destroyed the rotor, stator. I don't know generators too much. Oh, there's a little collar there. But anyways, I might put a little grease on here at least for the collar to spin on. That is how these old generators work, and hopefully that helps you guys out in learning whether or not you need to lubricate them. So you can tell, little passage right on in there. Must go around the outside. Now for the sake of demonstration, I'll show you all how this oils. So I put a drip of oil in there, and now I'm just going to give it a spritz of air. All it does is just slowly release oil around that collar, and that's how it lubricates it. And I'll just throw this back together. I will add that the bearing does seem fine, so more of the play seemed to actually be right here, or in this actual boss here in which it sits in. This actually could be slightly wallered out, and that's probably why this was originally remanufactured, and this doesn't quite fit in there properly, but you know how remanufactured things go, it's just the way she goes. Next up here, cranking motor. So same thing that we just did with the generator here, but with the cranking motor. Now unfortunately, this is also a reman. You could just tell because it's newer looking. And I'm not sure where the oil cup would be, but it does not have one. I assume it would go maybe where these rivets are? No, that wouldn't make sense. Probably down in this area where the actual bushing would be, or bearing, but I don't have anything, so disregard that if you do not have the original starter or cranking motor as well. Next up here, distributor. Now pause and read that if you guys actually have the original distributor. Okay, now that you paused and read that, and chances are you probably don't have the original distributor. If you do, lucky. Right here is showing the 2 places where to grease and oil the felt and whatnot. Fortunately, I don't have the original distributor. And here's the distributor. So the original ones on these are very serviceable in them, and you're supposed to lube up the breaker cam and whatnot. And there's grease zerks here and there, and you pump it until grease comes out the relief end. Well, unfortunately, I don't have that, so we can ignore that. But here on the housing is supposed to be, you take this plug out and then you put in a grease fitting, and then you fill that until you feel resistance on the gun, and then you let off, and you fill this with grease here. This is a drive, I assume, where the gear is, the gearbox and whatnot. I'm sorry, I actually haven't taken this off yet, but where this distributor talks to the governor. And I pop that off, and there's just a wall of sediment and junk. So I got to clean that on mine. But in case you guys are wondering what this is a grease zerk for greasing your distributor housing. Alright, so here's the technical name for that housing. Package, distributor, drive housing, and cover service. And then there's all the part numbers and whatnot. And if you guys are working on this tractor and you don't have one of these nice package service book deals from online, I highly recommend you get it. I got this from Peaceful Creek and I love it. It has anything and everything I ever needed to know and some inside here. And the last thing on the lubrication list here is clean and repack the front bearings with grease. So let's get the front axle off the ground and check these bearings out. Alright, got the wheel up in the air, and this is a perfect time to wiggle the wheel around up and down, left and right, and see if you have any slop or play in your actual steering line. Places to look are here, where this mates up to this tube here, see if there's any play there, as well as your ball joints here on the end. In my case, they both need work. And here's a perfect example of what I was talking about. Lots of play there. But now I'm going to feel out the wheel bearing, see how that feels, which is actually surprisingly very well. But I'm still going to pop these caps off and repack it and re-grease it. And in my case, this hub was a 13/16 bolts in each hole. And that was actually the original International Harvester hardware, so if you still have that, that'll probably be the same. So here's the hub here. I'm going to pop off these 3 1/2-inch bolts so I can service the actual wheel bearing itself, just repack it with some new grease. And also I would advise on going around this and cleaning this up with a brush just to ensure none of this dirt contaminant gets in and actually destroys your bearings. Alright, got it cleaned off. I just realized the wise thing would probably be to crack these loose with the wheel still on so it won't turn on you. But if you got an impact or if you just get a good grip on it with your legs, I've been able to bust them loose. And here's the actual spindle and bearing here. So pretty much there's just a castle nut and a washer that you remove, and then you can pull out the bearing and service it and clean it out. This whole hub will just slide off. Should be just like a trailer. I give you guys torque specs on torquing that nut down, but I don't know what front end you guys have. Mine is very common. It's a Schultz front end, but you guys might have a different front end, and I don't want to give you guys a misleading torque spec. But if this is anything like a car trailer, typically these cone bearings aren't really a bearing you torque down. You just press them in there and then you get it tight and then like a half turn, and then you either have another nut that's a jam nut. I'm not sure how this one works. It looks like there's actually a cotter pin that holds it in place, but typically this style you don't really torque them on. So I'm going to put that dust cap back on and the wheel back on and we'll be done. So there you are, guys. That is all the basic grease zerks on a Farmall 504 tractor. If I missed anything, please drop in the comments below. One thing I would like to know is if there's anywhere there's a moving linkage, feel free to put a little oil or grease on it. This might backfire because if there's oil or grease on surfaces like these, it will allow dirt to build up on them. But that's just my 2 cents. So I hope this video really helped you guys out. If you feel obliged to, please like, comment, and subscribe to just let me know how I'm doing. I'm a small channel. I'm trying to work my way up, and just everything helps. And I appreciate not only you guys watching the video and helping out the community, but you guys actually helping me out as well. Now let's work on the coronet, because all the parts came in for that, and I am excited to get this thing on the road.